Welcome to the latest episode of We Went to Miami. We have, I want to say, our first true musical guest on the show, the one, the only, highly requested, Steve Reineke. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Amataj. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I think before we even get into it, I think we got to talk about who you are for folks who may not recognize the name, because I think they're going to recognize the multiple organizations you've worked with. And I want to make sure I get this right. You are currently the conductor of the New York Pops, correct?
That's right. The conductor and music director of the New York Pops
Yeah. That's
in Manhattan.
And how long have you been in your current role?
With the New York Pops, I have been here. I got hired in 2008. I moved to New York City in 2009. Oh, yeah, going on 17 years here with the New York Pops at Carnegie Hall in Manhattan.
A very casual job.
Yeah, it's fun. It is. I mean, we have a great time. It's not stuffy at all, that's for sure.
No, but I mean, talk about high intensity, and we'll get to it. But you mentioned you moved to New York in 2009. You got hired in 2008. What year did you graduate from Miami?
I graduated Miami in 1993.
Okay.
Yeah. I went 5 years. I started in 1988 and went till I graduated in 93. So yeah, that was 15 years after graduation when I got the job in New York, right?
That's
Yeah.
incredible. And at Miami, I do know you studied music degrees, but what were your specializations when you were at Miami?
I started trumpet performance. Well, actually, I was in music education at the beginning because everybody told me, they said, performance degree, that's really hard. You should get an education degree to have something to fall back on. And boy, did I hate that philosophy
Yeah.
because for a couple reasons. One is that was not what I wanted to do. I didn't think that was my focus. I wanted to have a different path than be a band director or orchestra teacher. It's just not what I thought I was meant for or wanted to do. The other was I thought it really denigrated the profession of education to say something to fall back on, because the great teachers I had were incredibly talented at being teachers. I did not think that's where my skills or talent lied. And so I'm thinking, I'm not going to be a very good teacher if that's not really where my heart is or what I think I'm good at. Yeah. There are so many of my colleagues that went on to be and classmates that went on to be incredible music educators. And I went a different route. So trumpet performance is what it was. I also started to write a lot of music while I was there in college at Miami, and I had been doing that since I was a teenager anyway. But the music composition took over, and I decided to get a degree in music composition as well. And so that's what took 5 years, is to get the double major. Yeah, because I wanted to be a film composer. And
Oh,
well,
wow.
I moved out to Los Angeles after Miami, and it was due to a grant I won at Miami. So that was all so important in my life.
And so you mentioned kind of off the bat, you were like, I knew where my strengths lied and I knew where they didn't. And I feel like, I feel like I just turned 25, and I feel like I am somewhat getting a grasp at what I'm good at and what I'm not now. And I think a lot of people, when they're 18 and they're trying to pick their degree, or even when they just graduate and they're trying to figure out what to do, understanding your strengths is hard. But did you have a challenge figuring it out, or were you kind of day one, you knew what you were being called to?
It did change a lot it changed a little bit over time. I was lucky enough that I recognized early on that I had a talent for music. I had a great love for music. I had an aptitude for something very, very specific. So even when I was 13, 14, 15, 16 years old before college, I there was no question what I was going to
Oh,
major in school. I knew it was going to be music, but I didn't know what I was going to do with it for a living, and how was I going to make this into my career, my profession, and my livelihood. I didn't know that, but I knew that was where I wanted to go. And that's why trumpet was what I excelled at. And I guess, I thought at the time when I was starting school at 17, 18 years old that I was going to be a trumpet player in an orchestra somewhere. And then composition came on, and I thought, well, I can write music too. Then I won this grant. I moved out to LA and wanted to be the next John Williams, writing great film scores. All of that work writing led to a job back in Cincinnati with the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra. That led to meeting the conductor of that orchestra that took me under his wing and taught me conducting, which led to me now being a conductor as well. So I guess my point is, it's hard to tell exactly the path it's going to take.
Yeah.
You might have an idea of what direction you want to go in. It's like, I want to go this direction, but which which fork in the road or which path,
Yeah.
it can change. And that's the exciting thing is especially when you're young, is just to be open to those shifting paths that you can walk down.
And what got you to Miami in the first place? Because, I mean, and no shade to Miami, but I'm sure they were not the top trumpet program.
Well, I mean, it's exactly what I was going to say. At the time, I kind of got a little bit heartbroken because I really wanted to go to the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Big conservatory. Yeah. A friend of mine who was also a trumpet player from Ohio had gotten accepted the year or two before. And so I thought, I want to go to Eastman. Also, it was like high on my list, and I didn't get in. Apparently, I was in like the final 10 undergrad trumpet players for that year, and they accepted, I think, four or something like that. But and then Miami, I had it was obviously nearby, but more than that was I had received wonderful scholarship opportunities there, and so I went, even thinking, let's see, and then maybe I'll transfer, maybe I'll try to audition again for Eastman or whatever, transfer to a conservatory after a year or two. I never did, never even looked back because Miami University, once I got there, that's the thing, is it was the right place for me. Absolutely the right place at the right time. Had I gone to the Eastman Conservatory, the School of Music, I don't even know if I'd be in music to this day. I have no idea if
Wow.
that would have worked out or not.
Just like the environment itself, you think maybe?
Well, because while I was going to school, I had a lot of my friends at the time that went off to different conservatories, and it was so intense as an undergraduate that almost none of them work in music now to
Wow.
this day because they gave it up. It just burnt them
Yeah.
out. It was way too intense. And at Miami, I got encouraged so much by my professors and teachers there. And also, I got to do so many things that an undergraduate at Eastman or another conservatory would never have had the opportunity for. That was all for the graduate students. And so at Miami, I was able to just spread my wings and given so many opportunities.
And was there a moment, and maybe it was early on, maybe it was midway through at Miami where you were like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be?
I mean, yes, but I'm not sure I put it in those words or realized it at the time. I certainly know it to this day, and I knew it when I was graduating that it was what I needed to do. No, I think I did know at the time that this was extra special, that this was the place that I just needed to be. I could not be more thankful about how all of that worked out and the people that came into my life and the opportunities I had. And it's funny because when it's happening, you're not sure that you realize, it's not that you necessarily realize it. So much happens the older you get when you look in the rearview mirror and you think, oh, that's how I got here. I could have never planned this path
Yeah.
had I tried. You just got to look at it later and you think, okay, well, that makes sense. That's how all this happened. But it's hard to plan, which I guess I say this because don't beat yourself up if you don't know the right path to take or if you don't know what is my next step. It's basically just taking the next step. Even if you don't know exactly what it is, try this, try that. If a door is open in front of you, go through it. If you don't like it, get out, find a different door, find a different way to go. But don't beat yourself up about it because how are you expected to know these things? You know?
I love that. And we're going to come back to that. But I've got to ask, so during your 5 years at Miami, obviously you're getting really involved with the music department. But what did your Miami experience as a whole look like? Did you work any odd jobs? Were you in some funky student groups? What did it look like?
Let's see. I didn't work any odd jobs. Fortunately, I didn't. Well, I mean, I did, but not like the normal jobs.
Yeah.
I did stuff. I was writing music, and for example, in the summers, I would write marching band shows. I
Oh,
would do all the music for certain marching bands in Ohio and all over the place. In particular, Talawanda High School.
that's
Remembering some of
awesome.
the very first original band composition I wrote was for Talawanda,
Oh,
their concert band. And then that piece got published. It's called River of Life, and it still gets played all the time. But I wrote that very first published composition. I wrote for Talawanda. Like I said, so
that's an
my
odd job
summers,
for
yeah, I
sure.
would work. It's an odd
Yeah.
job, but I do have the great fortune of being able to say I never had a job outside of music except for one. My
Okay.
very first job was delivering papers. I was a paper boy with a paper route, driving my bicycle, putting the papers. Kids like you, sorry, I don't mean to call you a kid, but
No, please do. I ba
young people like you probably don't remember that there used to be people that would go around and deliver a paper to your a
I was
newspaper
just
to
gonna
your
ask,
house.
I was like, were there papers delivered in Oxford?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there are some people that will watch or listen to this that remember when they used to get a newspaper delivered, and
Yeah.
they would be a paper boy deliver them.
Okay, and it's so funny, in our last season, shout out to Donna Bowen, she was, she was telling me about her early journalism career, and she was like, "I had to transcribe my articles via the phone," and I was like, "Couldn't you have emailed them?" And she was like, "Email did not exist."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the first music I was writing, I wrote all of that music by
Mhm.
hand, pencil and paper. There was no music writing program. It was like old school. You do it with pencil and paper.
That's what so then what's the process of, like, you write something, how are you submitting it at that point?
At that point,
Yeah.
I mean, you just Xerox it and give it to your publisher or
Yeah.
whoever. There's no email of a PDF of anything like that. You put it in the mail and you ship it to somebody. And then I would make the score of a piece of music, which is like everybody's part all in one sheet. But then you have to take out the flute part separately, the clarinet part separately, trumpet part separately,
Oh
and
my
make all
god.
the individual parts. It was a very labor intensive process. But yeah, that's when I was starting. That's what we did. That's all we had. It was doing it by hand.
Being detail oriented, cause like,
Yeah.
that yeah, that's wild. I and it's so obvious when you think about it, it's like, "Oh, of course they weren't emailing it," but also, like, given our ease and access to tech right now, like, you totally forget about it.
You do, and I actually talk about this. I'm kinda going off a slight tangent on
Yeah.
this, but I talk about it with young students nowadays that are music students because one of the greatest lessons I ever had was from one of my composition teachers that I had at Miami University. His name was Harvey Stokes. I miss Dr. Stokes a lot, but Harvey had a great assignment one semester for me, and we picked, like, I don't know, he had a list of maybe 150 pieces, and then I would go through and pick some of my favorites. He would pick some of his favorites. These are classical compositions, and I don't remember how many I ended up doing throughout that semester, but I'd go to the music library, find the score for that particular piece of music, and then my job was to recopy that score verbatim with pencil and manuscript paper.
Wow.
And it was, I mean, with technology today, it's like nobody would ever do that. But it's an incredible exercise because I was rewriting scores by Beethoven, scores by Strauss, scores by Stravinsky, scores by Rimsky-Korsakov, Tchaikovsky, some of my favorite orchestrators. And when you take you because then you're dissecting every little thing they put in their music, what that note is, what that notation is, and you have to recreate it. So you're really paying attention to how it's put together. It's literally like if you wanted to learn how the engine of a car worked or the inside of a computer, take it apart and
Wow.
then put it back together. Then you understand how it works.
And you're loving this and you're soaking it all in. How much of your, like, Miami time was directly spent on doing coursework and music-related items? I'm assuming, like, what, 90%?
Most.
Yeah.
Yeah, most. And I did forget the other things you had asked. I just said I didn't have an odd job. But one thing I loved about Miami was that it wasn't all music. There was a lot of other activities that you could be involved in, and not to mention the fact that it was a liberal arts school. So I had to take all these other requirements. And I really enjoyed those because I feel like that made me incredibly well-rounded,
That's
more sociable, more versed in a lot of different subjects. For example, I mean, I fell in love with geology, and to this day, people
awesome.
ask me in interviews, "What would you do if you weren't doing music?" And my answer is always, "I would have been a geologist. I would have studied plate tectonics, probably, earthquakes. I might have been a worker at a national park or a ranger at a national park or something."
Yeah. Miami's also weirdly a
Alone.
good school for geology. I don't know if you've been, to campus in the past 5 to 10 years, but we have a really cool museum for geology as well. It's actually really it's next to Armstrong Student Center, and it's oddly cool for, like, a subject I feel like isn't huge at Miami.
I know I'll have to check it out next time I'm there, but I fell in love with that class. There were so many classes I had that I really liked, and I tormented some of my teachers too. I mean, I loved German, but poor Peter Carols, my German teacher. He gave me so many opportunities, but I took his class like 3 times to finally
Oh
pass that class.
gosh.
Well, because I spent so much time doing
Yeah,
music,
absolutely.
but I did love all the other activities, and boy, that campus is just special, and the people, the social activities. It was a special time in my life. I think
Yeah,
any Miami graduate can say what a special time in
absolutely.
their life it was.
And, you mentioned you love the social aspect. Were you in non-music extracurriculars?
Trying to think of non-music
Or even
extracurriculars
shout
that I
out
might
your
have.
music one?
Yeah, well, I was in the music one of the music fraternities. That was great. Good brotherhood, and a lot of fun. Trying to think of non-music activities. I don't know. I mean, I liked sports, and we would do a lot of sports. Of course, I played in the marching band, so
That's
that
awesome.
meant I was always at the football games. I'm a big football fan. We'd love to go to the hockey games and the basketball games. Yeah, I don't think I was in any particular extracurricular other than the music ones. But I'll tell
Yeah.
you, I mean, being in a marching band is one big social
Oh,
experiment
yeah,
because I
absolutely.
yeah, I don't know if it's still up to 300 people, but when I was in, it was like 300 people, and most of them are not music majors at all, which is great because you have this whole other group of friends that's outside of the music department. Also, we had band camp 1 week before classes ever started. So we all moved in,
A
and
week early, yeah.
a week early when I was a freshman, right out of high school. And instead of being like intimidated and scared and frightened and what's this going to be like, you find your own group, your own tribe, your own little clique immediately before everybody else got to campus.
That's
We
awesome.
were like together making friends and partying and working together as a team. So that was really special too.
It's cool also to see because like, I don't know the size of the marching band now, admittedly, but they are a very tight-knit group. I
Yeah.
always remember there's always at least 1 or 2 folks from marching band on homecoming court, and that's always such a special moment, like, just seeing the marching band come out and support their fellow musicians, so that's wonderful. And, you mentioned you've alluded that after Miami, you end up in California. What did that journey look like for you? Because I know, you have a traditional student that's like, you apply for a job, you get an internship offer. If you do well in your internship, then you get a full-time role upon graduation. I'm assuming it's a bit different in your industry. How did that work for you?
Well, it was all due to Miami, University about how that worked out
Okay.
because when I was in my final year, it was the first year of a prize being offered at Miami. I think they still offer it. It was called the Joanna Jackson Goldman Memorial Prize.
Okay.
It was the inaugural year of this, and the prize was $10,000.
Oh,
And it was yes. And it was to do scholarly or creative activity other than graduate school. And I
nice.
I wanted to go out into the real world, and I didn't wanna go to more graduate school for music in particular. I wanted to learn in the real world about music. So I had some professors in the music department say, "Steven, you should apply for this." I mean, being the very first year of it, we had no idea what kind of person they would go for,
Yeah.
any of that, and I thought, "There's no way they're gonna pick a music person for this because it was open to the entire university.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough
But
competition just generally.
yeah, so I remember going through the whole process, writing up a proposal about what I wanted to do to move to Los Angeles and the things that were available for me that I could participate in if I were there and had the funds to do these things, to study film music that wasn't at USC or UCLA, wasn't at a school. There were extra things. The ASCAP Film Composers Workshop. There was something called the Composers Orchestra, Film Composers Orchestra, that you could rent studio time, hire the orchestra, and record demos that would go to producers and directors, etc. All this type of thing. And so I got pretty far down that made it into the finalists. And I remember where the finals were going to be. Can't remember the name of it, but the finals we found out where they I found out where they were going to be held. This final interview, and I scoped it out, and there was a piano in the vicinity.
Okay.
And so I had written a piece of music and I brought it along for my final interview. And part of what I was doing was I said, "Can I play something I've recently written that's, you know, movie music?" And I did. And I know that that was kind of impressive in a way. And I don't know if that's what sealed the deal or not, but
Yeah,
all of a sudden we find out that I had won this $10,000 to go
that's
move
incredible.
to Los Angeles. Now, it was 1993, so I don't know what $10,000 meant then, but it seemed like a fair amount of money.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
the prize is a lot bigger now. I'd have to look it up. And I'm assuming they still do it because I keep tabs on lots of people who have won the award since
Oh,
then in all kinds of venues and disciplines. But
okay.
yeah, I was able to pack up my beat up old Subaru with everything I could fit in it. And a friend of mine drove with me and drove across the country. At that time, I did not even know where I was going to sleep when I got to Los Angeles. But through a friend of a friend of a friend, somebody, a gentleman out there had space and said, well, stop here, come here first, and Stephen can stay here, up to a couple weeks while he finds a place to live. So then I did that. Met this person, slept on his spare bed, and then I found an apartment that I can afford in Glendale, California,
Okay.
and I didn't want to I couldn't blow the money. I had to spend the money on certain things. I couldn't just go out to eat with it or something.
Yeah.
I had to itemize some things. And I didn't want to spend it on rent. So I found this place in Glendale where rent was actually free in this tiny studio above the guy's garage because he traveled a lot and had these two Labrador dogs.
Well,
And if I would take care of the dogs and the pool and the grounds while he traveled, I could live above his garage for free.
that's an odd job.
That was an odd job. But I mean, so it's a series of circumstances, but it was this crazy idea that got me out to Los Angeles.
Well, and Steve, were you freaked out? Like, when you were driving on this, like, cross-country road trip to LA,
I was
how was it?
excited.
But no idea where you were gonna say what they're not a small part of you that was like, "Holy shit, what am I gonna do?"
Kind of, kind of. I mean, but I was also excited. I guess
That's
that's just how
scary.
crazy I was at the time.
Yeah.
And we just figured it out. And, you just put one foot in front of the other. There's a phrase that I really like to tell myself a lot of times, especially when I'm working on a big piece of music. I'll tell myself this because currently I've been working on a large scale project. And I have to continue to tell myself when I look at the big picture of things, sometimes you can just get overwhelmed, totally stressed out by it. And it's just the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can think about it is just literally put one foot in front of the other, tackle it little by little. You just got to do something until you eventually
Figure
can
it out.
manage the
Mm.
whole thing. So about LA, it was basically just like, I don't know, let's figure this part out. Then we'll figure this part out later. And then it all worked out. And through those experiences led me back to Cincinnati for a job. God, it's so Miami centric. So
It always
when
is.
I w it is. When I was in LA, I got hired back to Cincinnati to orchestrate, and this was due to the things I had been writing at Miami and then in Hollywood. And I got invited back to Cincinnati to orchestrate a full-length 90-minute ballet score, all original music. The ballet was Peter Pan, and the music
I
was
just
being
saw Peter Pan last week. It was
what,
so
the
good.
ballet?
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
ballet.
and the music was written by Carmen de Leon.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's the same Peter Pan you saw because Cincinnati Ballet originated that ballet.
Whoa.
And Carmen de Leon was my orchestra director at Miami University.
Whoa.
So Carmen knew me, obviously, and
Yep.
he trusted me and had me back to Cincinnati. He was writing all the music, but didn't have time to orchestrate
Oh,
90 minutes, decide what everybody's playing in the orchestra. So I came back and worked with Carmen to create that orchestration, which led to the attention of Eric Kunzel, who is the founder and conductor of the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra. And Eric Kunzel had me into his office, and first words he ever said to me were, "So, kid, you any good?" Said, "Well, I like to think so." So he had me do some work for him. Long story short, he said, "Hey, would you move back to Cincinnati from Los Angeles and be my full-time composer and arranger of the Cincinnati Pops?" And there was no other job like that in the country. So I
wow.
said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, why not?" I mean, I was 24, 25 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I was back in Cincinnati.
And was that also a cross-country road trip coming back, or was that did that
That was
it was it? Okay.
cross-country road trip coming back all by myself this time,
Wow, okay.
which was mostly great.
Yeah,
I suggest everybody drive across the country at least once in their life,
okay.
but doing it by myself was really interesting on the way back. The hardest part about that was I ended up it was like January or February, and I was great going the southern route until I started up north, and I remember I got stuck in Springfield, Missouri in an ice storm. Yeah,
Yikes.
we were stopped on the highway for hours and hours and hours because they shut down the highway. Nobody could move. I was like turning the car on and off to try and stay warm. Finally, some trucker came up and knocked on my window, freaking me out. He
Yeah.
said, I know what it's like to be, in a little car because I'm surrounded by all these semis. And he said, I don't want you to run out of gas, so you can come and sit in my cab and stay warm until they open the highway. I'm like, "Oh, thanks. I think I'm gonna be okay." I mean, I was a little freaked out by that too.
I was literally, like, putting myself in your shoes, and I was like, "My mom would have killed me if I did."
I know. So here's what happened. I sit in my car for probably another hour. The highway doesn't
Yeah.
move. So then I'm like, shit,
You're like,
maybe I'll die, maybe I won't. So I walk back to the trucker, banging on his door, and I get in the cab of this truck. And I remember asleep, thinking, "Oh, man, here I am in this stranger's cab of his truck, but at least I'm warm." Asleep, and then all of a sudden, I remember somebody knocking on the window, and they're like, "Okay, hi, we're gonna" it was the highwah patrol. They're like, "We're opening the highway, but everybody has to get off." So I got back in my car, got off the highway, promptly drove my car into a snowdrift because you couldn't see where the road was.
"Oh my gosh."
So that was screwed. So I got out, walked to the nearest hotel, which had a million people in the lobby, and we just slept in the lobby on the floor until the
Whoa.
morning. And the next day, the sun came out, and eventually the ice broke up enough that we could drive again. So that's my solo trip home. Was a unfortunate 24-hour stop.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, I always call it Springfield misery instead of Missouri.
Rightfully so, I feel like you definitely earned that one.
But
Yikes.
see, that was an experience. I mean,
I mean, you even retelling that, I mean, you're giddy. Like, you're like, "That was the best yet craziest time ever."
it's kind of funny because now, I mean, I'm what am I, 55 years old, and I can't really imagine doing some of those things. When you're young, you do crazier things, but I didn't have much choice then. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it was do or don't, and from day one, it seems like you've always been a doer.
just find a way.
Yeah, so you somehow find a way back to Cincinnati.
I remember I was so tired coming in from Kentucky, right through the cut in the hill where you get that beautiful
Yeah.
view of Cincinnati. And I was driving still that beat up old Subaru. I don't even know how it made it there. But I had the windows rolled down so I didn't fall asleep, freezing outside.
Oof.
And I remember I had God, I think swear to God it was on cassette tape. It was Jesus Christ Superstar. And I'm
Well,
belting out, singing along to Jesus Christ Superstar with the windows open,
just to
probably
keep
2
yourself
in the
awake.
morning, keep myself awake. God, crazy.
That's me with In the Heights these days.
In the Heights these days.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, of
it was
course.
Houston for a good while.
Yep.
But so you get back to Cincinnati, and you're with the Pops there briefly before you end up back not back in New York, but you end up in New York, which would be the remainder of your career. What was your time
Yeah.
in Cincinnati like?
Well, it was actually not that briefly. I was there 13 years
Oh,
basically.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I got back in 95 with Eric Kunzel and worked with him. Cincinnati people will know Eric as the founder and longtime conductor of the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra. And back in that time, they were really big in recording and television shows. That
Oh,
was in
cool.
the 90s. That people bought CDs all the time and
Nice.
vinyl, and we could do PBS television shows. So it was a great job. And Eric took me under his wing, eventually getting into more and more conducting. And I was with Eric until he passed away. And I guess he died, I think it was September 1st, 2009, which was the day I moved to New York City.
Whoa.
Yeah, so in those last year or so he died of pancreatic cancer, and I think it was only like 14 months after being diagnosed that he passed away. I remember I was with him in the doctor's office when he got the news and through all of the stuff. By that point, I had gotten my very first job as a principal pops conductor. It was the Modesto Symphony. And that must have been in 2005, probably, or six. And then the year after, that was in Northern California. The year after, I was offered the job with the Long Beach Symphony as their principal pops conductor in Southern California, Orange County. So here I was. By this point, I'm 35, I guess.
Okay.
and I finally get my first job as a conductor, as a titled position as a conductor.
And can you specify what's the difference between a principal pops conductor and a conductor?
Well, principal pops conductor is just like the title of a job, and also meaning that I specialize in popular music, pops
Okay.
concerts. I specialize in popular music, even though I'm all classically trained. My focus isn't doing classical concerts.
Mm,
It's doing more all the non-classical concerts with
gotcha.
orchestra, popular music. So anyway, I had these two orchestras in California. Then I got the call to do an audition with the New York Pops, and they offered me the job there. And it was right at the time Eric was dying, and I moved to New York the same day he passed away. It was really like a passing of the torch,
Yeah.
as it were. It was kind of surreal, but I knew it was getting the New York Pops and moving to New York City. That was something that was going to change my life forever, and it did. That's really when whole new chapter of my life began as a professional. It was the next year, 2010, when I was offered the job of principal pops conductor with the National Symphony Orchestra in Washington, D.C.
Mm,
And I've been there since 2010, so that's going on 16 years.
yeah.
I have the same job with the Toronto Symphony and the same job with the Houston Symphony. So I actually have a conducting full-time job with four different orchestras at the moment.
That's wild. Also, like, and this is definitely not the best way to explain it, but in my head, I'm like, oh my God, you're like co-custody of like all the orchestras. How do you keep them straight? Like, are you traveling to go conduct on all of their shows? And like,
Oh yeah.
how is the like, well, one, I want to know your travel tips, but also I'm just like, how are you managing that in your life with on top of, I believe you're married as well, and also just like being in New York and taking advantage. I mean, obviously you're taking advantage of being in the city. You live a great life in New York, but like how do you balance it all traveling to four different cities?
It is a lot. Thankfully, I have a great manager that helps me sort of manage the whole thing.
Holiday.
But yeah, and then I also have great colleagues in each city with each orchestra that help me manage things as well. And there is a lot of travel involved going between those four cities. And also sometimes I go and guest conduct in other places too. So there's a lot of travel up to, 40 weeks or so out of the year sometimes
Yeah,
where
I
I'm on
mean
the road.
a that's like more than half of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but, I get to be in New York from time to time, and I also do find time. I think it's very important to find time to go away and take a little vacation time, especially to be with my husband, and us to have some time together. But I'm not normally going, like, an entire week. If I go away for an entire week or 2 weeks, that doesn't happen that often throughout the year. It's usually something like, I leave on a Wednesday and I'm back on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, sometimes a Monday. So I'm typically home a couple days out of every week, which is good. But then it's home for 48 hours and then back to the
Back
airport and
to
on the road again.
Well, now
Uh,
yeah, I was about to say, do you have, like, a luggage brand you swear by? Like, have you like, there should be, like, a collab or something at this point.
Seriously, I did just buy a new Samsonite. So
Okay,
we'll see how this
copy
one holds up.
that.
Yeah, we'll see how this one holds up. The zippers tend to be the biggest problem.
I can only imagine, and is
One other tip I'd say is
yeah,
stick with one airline. Find an airline you love and
everyone
stick
keeps
with the
telling me
loyalty
okay,
the loyalty program. I've been a Cincinnati used to be a Delta hub, so I was a Delta person for a long time
yeah.
and continue to be because Delta is really big in New York City as well. So, I'm a million and a half miles now and,
Wow.
the top tier status. So you typically get upgraded all the time. It helps.
Yeah, I'm
It
sure.
helps. It's not great. The worst part about travel is the airports. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't even mind being at the hotels because all of my regular cities, I'm at a hotel that I've been staying at for years.
Yeah,
So I know the staff, they know me. It's almost like a home away from home. So it makes being away and it makes being in a hotel slightly better
yeah.
when it's something that's familiar and they treat you really well. But
And
yeah, the travel can be hard, but thankfully I love it. And I love when I get home to New York City. Because honestly, New York City is a lot. Everybody knows this. It's a love hate thing. I do love it, but it can be an assault on the senses. I tell people, especially coming from Ohio, if I lived here 52 weeks out of the year and never left, I would probably go mad. I'd probably hate it.
This
But
is really
yeah,
reassuring because I'm headed to New York literally on Wednesday. I'm there till
oh, good,
I
good.
travel to New York for work often and could not agree more. Everyone's like, "I can't believe you don't wanna move there," and I'm like, "Nah, I'm good traveling in and coming back out."
I like to visit, yeah, and I like to live here too.
Yeah,
It has its pros and its cons, but it's a lot, and
it
I
is.
get that. I admit that. So, I think for me, it's nice to get out, and then when I get back, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as
So
they say.
true. And,
Yeah.
you have custody of all of these orchestras, for lack of better terms. You're
Yeah.
guest conducting at, other orchestras as well. And when you're up there and you're conducting, there's so many leadership skills you're having to use in the moment. And also just being aware of what's going on around you. Do you ever get nervous still? Or have you mastered it? Or is there something you continue to work on? I mean, how did you build the confidence to just be able to walk on stage and feel 100% good about what you're doing?
That's all interesting questions. Don't really get nervous per
Yeah,
se. I'll get nervous energy. But it's almost an excitement rather
yeah,
than being a scared it's an excited nervous rather than a scared nervous. Carnegie Hall always does it just because it's Carnegie Hall.
yeah.
It's a very special place. I almost get more nervous in a smaller room. Like sometimes I'll host these benefits or fundraisers in New York City to a club called 54 Below. It's an intimate room, a couple hundred, 300 people. I'm more nervous that. I mean, give
Uh,
me 3,000 people in the dark or out at the Hollywood Bowl, there's 18,000 people and I'm talking to them and it's like that no problem.
that's crazy.
I guess it's a couple things. One is I had this great teacher that I was able to watch at Console, and I just learned so much from him about what to do and what not to do. That's what a great mentor can teach you is the variety of things.
Yeah.
The other was I think I was always just kind of a born ham, extrovert. I was class clown when I was in school, and so I was always going for the attention. That's part of the performer in me, I think. And the other thing I also think of, and I don't know where this comes from exactly, but I feel like when I step on stage, it's almost like it's a different person in a way.
Yeah, your alter ego.
It's almost like an alter ego. I mean, but as long as I've been doing this now, because I'll get off stage and I'll be like, man, I was in such a bad mood, or I was so tired before that concert. And then as soon as I walk through the doors and I hit the lights and I hear the applause, I become a different person. And the whole thing is just like a surreal experience. And then it's over. And I think, well, you did another one. And, it's good. You didn't feel like you were off kilter.
That's awesome. And, as you look back on your career thus far, right? And you mentioned you've always been a ham. You've always felt this confidence. If there's any piece of advice current you could give to the version of you that was making that cross country road trip to California for the first time, what would it be, if anything?
Honestly, advice I give to artists in particular, especially artists that are going to work in the gig economy,
Yeah.
freelancing. It would be the biggest, most important advice I wish I could give to my younger self. Boy, I wish I would have taken some classes in the Richard T. Farmer School of Business at Miami
Farmer's gonna
because
love to clip that.
exactly. Or the other thing I would say is get yourself a good accountant
Yeah, wow, that's
because
good advice.
when my life started to happen and I started to work in California, yet I was living in Ohio, and
All
then
those
I started
connections. Yeah.
yeah, and then I started to get I went and conducted a concert in Kuala Lumpur with
Oh,
the Malaysian Philharmonic and M Type. It doesn't even matter if it's that big, just the fact that I would get a stack of tins at
oh,
the end of the year,
yeah.
and I didn't have a W-2 from anybody, and just how to understand how to deal with that. It's not the same as the way most people go through life and they have a 9 to
Mhm.
5 job or whatever it is, and they have a but a lot of people are like this now,
Yeah,
where it is freelance work, it's gig economy, whatever. I do wish, maybe they're doing it more now, but I wish music schools would offer some sort of
absolutely.
business of music class. I never learned anything about how to manage the taxes and the money end of it. All that came with trial and error and pain and growing pains as you're learning and your career blooms and builds. I made plenty of mistakes along the way and learned things the hard way because I didn't know any better. And that was unfortunate that I wish I didn't have to go through some of the hard lessons I went through.
Yeah.
It all works out fine in the end, but if I can help a younger performer
Yeah.
avoid that, yeah, then please get a good accountant, learn something about the business end of music
I couldn't agree.
or any arts.
I myself, I'm a hybrid, so I have a 9 to 5, but I do a lot of freelancing outside of it, and I just started business school up about a year and a half ago, and it's because I realized, like, I don't have the business foundation I really should have, so I'm a big fan of that advice, and while I definitely don't have the results to second it, I second it nonetheless.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of it in the gig economy too is, for me, when I look back at the beginning, you couldn't even know how much money you might make in a year
Yeah,
when you're starting it, not necessarily. So how do you even know what to estimate in quarterly taxes? Just to get in the nitty gritty of it is
yeah.
because you don't even know that then. But a lot of people don't understand the complexities of what that means and the uncertainties of a gig economy. And then something like the pandemic comes along and forget it. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I wanna be mindful of your time, so to kind of end up our time together today, we have a Miami lightning round, and we ask this of all of our guests, and
Oh boy.
these are audience-submitted questions that we ask everyone at the end of a podcast. They're not
Okay.
bad, but they're pretty fun, so I hope you enjoy these. The first one we have is, if you bought a space uptown, what kind of business would you open?
Oh, uptown. You say uptown, and I think uptown New York.
Sorry, uptown.
Uptown. Oh, uptown Oxford. What would I open?
Yeah, what kind of business would you open?
Well, Skyline Chili. I don't know if it's still there, but
It
I
is!
would eat.
We could
I
use
would be there right when they opened, 10:30 in the morning sometimes.
a 10:30 chili cheese coney sounds crazy.
I've done it many times.
I love that. Okay. What is one thing you wish you tried while you were a student on campus that you did not?
What didn't I try? One thing I wish I tried while I was on campus that I did. Boy, boy.
It's okay if there's nothing.
I don't know. My friends used to play something called broom ball. I don't know if
It's
they still
still
do that, but
alive and well.
I never played broom ball.
All right.
And that sounded like fun. I'd probably like that.
And hand in hand, is there anything still on your Miami bucket list?
Miami bucket list.
If you have one. I'm sure not everyone does, contrary to what they may think.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I can't
That's
think of
okay.
anything. I mean, yeah.
No, that's all right. What is your go-to Oxford/campus food spot? And if you remember, what's your order?
Boy, what was that place called? Hang on. Oh, yeah, I remember now. Well, let me think of what I got. Oh, I know exactly.
Okay.
Okay, I used to love to go to a place called Skipper's. I don't know if Skipper's is still there.
Alive and well. I love
What?
Cruise. It's the best.
You're making my mouth water now because I used to get this bacon cheeseburger with these waffle fries, and it was so good and goes so great with a beer.
Not getting the Mac bites is criminal. Skipper's is
Mm.
still the bar.
Skipper's is still there.
Yeah, 100%. Um,
Wow.
and they have a bar on top deck, and they do, like, trivia. It's super fun. I'm glad Skipper's representation has been lacking on the podcast, so I'm glad they got a shout.
Oh, you know what? There's another thing now that I'm remembering, and it can't still be there, but, the Chuck Wagon,
No,
Chuck Burgers
someone
late
said
at
that
night.
last season. The Chuck Wagon, I never saw it, but I do know it's not around anymore.
No, because Chuck passed away,
Oh.
but the Chuck Wagon that was the thing, because that was late at night. That was when things closed down, so you know what was going on there.
And
100%.
your final question to kinda wrap us up is, and you've intermittently actually shared some of these, but any Miami shout outs to Miamians who either made your Miami experience really special or continue to be dear friends and influences as you've graduated?
I mean, there's a great group of people that were all sort of in the same class, or we were just close together. Not even the same class, but people like John Higgins. These were students, yeah. David Ionelli, Claire Bigley, Danny Ashbrook. I mean, this list goes on and on and on. But also, he was the director of the wind ensemble. He's since retired, but that's Gary Speck, Dr. Gary Speck.
That's so cool.
And, yeah, I remember when I was a freshman, it was Dr. Speck's first year teaching as
Oh,
well.
wow.
So we were like freshmen together, and that group was a very special group. And yeah, if any of them hear this, they'll all know exactly what I'm talking about.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of one, your busy travel schedule, but also your busy schedule generally to come on the show. So many people have been requesting you to come on. So
Come on.
I no, like literally, like our comment section's always Steve Reineke. So I'm appreciative you're on, and I know a lot of people are going to be so excited to see you. So thank you so much, Steve.
Amatosh, thank you very, very much. I appreciate this. And you have just made me so nostalgic for
Oh,
Miami University. So thank you for that.
absolutely.